It is crazy to think that it has been 7 years since the launch of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and 6 years since I jumped on board in April of 2014. With the next generation of console, the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S respectively coming out next week, I wanted to go ahead and just take a look back at the console that brought me into the 8th generation and the games I was playing in that launch window. Starting off with Assassin's Creed 4, which is actually the first PlayStation 4 game I ever owned, back when they were offering that promotion where you paid $5 and you got to upgrade your copy to the next generation. So even though I already owned Assassin's Creed 4 on Wii U, I ended up buying it again on PS3 so I can pay the extra $5, because my mindset was, well, at the very least, when I get my PS4 eventually, I'll have at least something to play on it. And even though I already beat it on Wii U and again on PS3, as soon as I got my hands on my PlayStation 4, this was the first game I downloaded, and I beat it again because I absolutely love Assassin's Creed 4. I do plan on giving it its own full review, so I will be a little more generic here, but just the story is so good. I love the characters. I really do enjoy the character arc that Edward goes on. He essentially just starts out being a selfish prick and actually grows to be a pretty decent person, and especially the ending when you realize kind of how far you went and all that you lost. Assassin's Creed 4's ending to this date is the most emotional ending I've ever experienced in the entire 16 years I've been playing video games. I absolutely love this game. Its story is great. Gameplay wise, I think this is one of the best Assassin's Creed ever made. The one button parkour has been adjusted from Assassin's Creed 3, so it does feel better here and it works a little better. You will still get caught up on things that you don't want to climb, but it's nowhere near as prevalent as it was in Assassin's Creed 3, though it also could be the difference in level design overall. And the combat, they went ahead and made the time that you had to counter just slightly lesser than in Assassin's Creed 3, so yes, while it is still kind of easy to cheese, it's a little more difficult to do so therefore it's a little bit more reliant upon skill. Not exactly skill based, but it is more reliant upon skill than Assassin's Creed 3, so at the very least it was showing they were trying to make improvements, and those little improvements added up enough to make the definitive version of this kind of one-button parkour counter combat system that Assassin's Creed had. I don't think they've ever topped this version of that gameplay style. And then of course this is probably the best pirate simulator out there. Sailing the high seas is great and all. I actually did love just going through all the uncharted islands and collecting all the collectibles. I actually 100% completed this game at least 2 or 3 times. I think you all get the point. I absolutely love Assassin's Creed 4. I still think it's great to this day. It is still one of my top 5 favorite games of all time. I highly recommend it, but it is time to move on. Next up is actually the first physical game I ever owned for the PS4, Infamous Second Son. I actually got this about a week or so before I got my PS4. Basically, I was a week away from being able to afford my PS4, but I did track down a copy of that limited edition, that launch edition, so I can get Cole's jacket. So I went to a GameStop about 10 miles away from my house just to secure that copy. I already have a full review of this game on this channel, so if I do remember, I will link that below, so I'll try to keep it as brief as possible here. Infamous Second Son is just one of the most fun games available on the PS4, and it was one of the main reasons why I wanted a PlayStation 4 in particular to start out the 8th generation. I know a lot of critics didn't exactly like Delson, but I thought he was hilarious and a very charismatic lead character. I really liked the world of Seattle. I loved all of the different powers, especially Neon and Video. Those are just really good additions. There's so much to talk about and so many things I like about this game. It still looks gorgeous. There is so much content here. Yes, there are some drawbacks. Yes, the karma system, that binary good-bad, didn't exactly work out the best. However, it worked out fine enough here, and I had so much fun. I've 100% completed this game. I've beaten it at least 3 or 4 times, and I absolutely see myself beating it again. It's a great game. If you haven't played it, it's only 20 bucks now. Come on, I can easily recommend this one. And the last of the big 3 is actually the game that got me into the next generation, the entire reason why I wanted a next generation console regardless of PS4 or Xbox One, and that was Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs is actually the reason I became a critic. I remember when I was waiting to go to the midnight launch to get the PS4 version, which is what my dad bought me as a graduation present. I was downloading the PS3 version because I went ahead and pre-ordered that just in case I didn't have a next-gen console in time for the launch, and I sat there as it was preloading and I just thought to myself, what am I really expecting out of this game? And for whatever reason, after just questioning that, all of that hype went away, and I went into this game with just an open mind, and I had so much freaking fun. This is a game that I have 100% completed multiple times. I have beaten it multiple times on multiple consoles. I just have too much fun playing Watch Dogs. I really enjoyed the story. I really love the open world gameplay and the kind of stealth shooting mechanics. That's the kind of gameplay I really do enjoy, and I could sit here and gush for hours. I love so many things. I really do enjoy the hacking system, even though it is just essentially one button, but it was essentially a prototype. You're kind of getting your feet wet to see what this mechanic can really do, and I think for a first try, it really was a solid attempt. Does Watch Dogs have flaws? Yes, and you know what? I accept each and every one of those, and I still love this game regardless. I do plan on also reviewing this game eventually, so so to keep it short, I think Watch Dogs is a good game, and I can easily recommend it to just about anyone. Next, we're just going to talk about 5 more miscellaneous games that I happened to play throughout this launch window, but weren't exactly the main focus. So first and foremost, Thief, that came out in February of 2014. It's a reboot of the classic franchise that I know a lot of hardcore fans didn't like, and I honestly understand and respect your opinion, but I thoroughly enjoyed the 2014 version of Thief. I really did like the story, even though going back to it, I don't really know why. I do plan on reviewing this as well, so maybe I'll get more into that later. I did like Garrett as a character, and I can kind of relate to what they were going for as that kind of loner character with him in this particular version. However, I also understand that it is a departure from his original character. The stealth mechanics are actually really solid. I had a lot of fun just running around and stealing everything. I remember when they had the GameStop promotion for it, where there was a sign saying what's yours is mine. So me and my brother-in-law walked in and said, so that sign's ours, right? The city is a bit generic. However, the gothic architecture and the art design, I genuinely did find it interesting to explore, but when I started exploring it, it wasn't all that interesting. And on top of that, those hidden load times were kind of dumb, and the fact that they were everywhere and you're just sitting there trying to pry open a window or move a piece of 2x4 to sneak in through an alley, it was just really dumb, to be honest. But those critiques are relatively minor considering the fact that I do find the stealth mechanics to be really fun, and it is really satisfying to just be a thief sneaking through the shadows. And of course, the fact that the game actually did let you play it your way, so if you were a more hardcore fan, you could play it as stealthily as you wanted, but you could also be more of a predator build if you really wanted to. I like flexibility in games. In theory, I understand why I did upset hardcore fans, however, it is just an option, and you can choose to play it as stealthy as you want. I'll say it right now, Thief is a pretty good game, and I can recommend it, though it's not great by any means. I'll go ahead and sneak in a quick one before the trilogy of shooters. There is Strider. It's this 2D, essentially successor or reboot of an old classic series, and I remember seeing a lot of footage of this game around when it came out, especially from guys like Review Tech USA and whatever, and it actually made me want to play this game because it looked really fun. And it is really fun, but I just never beaten it because it just didn't really end up holding my interest all that much. The gameplay is fast-paced, kind of hack and slash 2D platforming. I really do enjoy that, but only in small doses. And while the game is a lot of fun to play, it looks gorgeous, it runs very well. It's one of those games that I'm probably just never going to end up beating, but I can still recommend it because I did have a good time. I don't feel like I wasted my money on this one. Next, to start out the trilogy of shooters, we have Call of Duty Ghosts, one of the most hated Call of Duties that I couldn't help but love. Back in the day, I did enjoy the story, though when I do revisit it, I don't exactly know what I saw in it, so I will admit that's probably just because I was a fan of Call of Duty at the time, but the multiplayer is still one of my favorite in the series. It's not top 3 or anything, but I do thoroughly enjoy it because of the open map design. I understand it ended up encouraging a lot of camping, that's why a lot of people don't like it, but with me specifically, I love open maps and open worlds, and this was right in the middle of my open world frenzy, if you will. I just find the maps really fun to run through. The shooting mechanics are fast and responsive. I love a lot of the guns. The game does look really good and also still runs pretty well to this day. It's just, I thoroughly enjoy Call of Duty Ghosts, and even though I can't say I love the story anymore, the gameplay is something that I will take time out of my day to go ahead and play every now and again because I think Call of Duty Ghosts is a good game. Next up was Sony's big console launch exclusive, Killzone Shadowfall. I'm gonna say this right now, Killzone Shadowfall, it looks amazing. The environments, especially in that first big open stage, all of the guns look really good. I like almost all the multiplayer maps in terms of visuals, and the shooting mechanics are actually pretty solid. I did have a good time while playing this, primarily multiplayer, but at least a little bit throughout the single player. Here's the downside. I think the story is absolutely boring, and I've never beaten this game. I've never even gone more than a couple of hours into it because I just can't get myself invested in the story, and I think that is the biggest downfall with Killzone Shadowfall, is it is so ridiculously uninteresting. It feels like a tech demo, and as a tech demo, it really is good. Again, solid shooting mechanics. I did have fun playing this. I do like Killzone Shadowfall, but the story is just so bland and uninteresting, and the intro does nothing to get me hooked. Killzone Shadowfall is a gorgeous game that's actually pretty fun to play multiplayer-wise, but I can't recommend the single player, and overall, that does drag the game down to just being pretty decent. And finally, of course, the third is always the worst, Battlefield 4. This is a game that I know it launched terribly. I ended up playing it later throughout the PS4's lifespan, so I wanted to at least briefly mention it here, that I really did enjoy Battlefield 3's campaign, so I thought I would at least have the same amount of fun with Battlefield 4's, and I just didn't, and I did get to play the multiplayer, and I just felt that the multiplayer in Battlefield 3 was just better, and because of those two facts to me, when I think about Battlefield 4, I think of Battlefield 3, but it's not quite as good. I mean, it looks better, this game looks gorgeous, but other than looks, Battlefield 4 is just kind of a mediocre shooter. And that was my PlayStation 4 launch experience, and 6 years ago, I had so much fun playing a lot of these games, and you know what's funny? The 8th generation came in right as I was getting ready to leave high school, and I remember thinking, oh, I want to make sure I'm playing these games forever. I'm playing these games for as long as I possibly can, and of the 8 games I've talked about, I've beaten 5 of them, and 4 of those 5 I've beaten multiple times, and of those 5 games, I'm still regularly playing Assassin's Creed 4 and Watch Dogs, and taking time out of my day every so often to play Thief and Infamous Second Son. I'm just honestly thankful at looking back on it, all these games that I thoroughly enjoyed 6 years ago, and I wanted to keep playing for as long as possible, are games that I'm still playing to this day, and that really is just special to me. I've had my ups and downs throughout the 8th generation, but one thing that has stayed consistently good, that consistent special memory, is those launch games, and how a lot of these games are games I still thoroughly enjoyed to this day. And not only am I grateful for that, but I had a lot of fun making this video and getting to talk about these games again, and having to play some of these games again, even if it was just for brief periods of time to capture some gameplay footage. So with that being said, here's to hoping the 9th generation is even better than the 8th.